Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
There may be a moment just before we click up and become available to talk.
Hey, you guys. So we did not watch Love Island tonight because we've been talking about this, haven't we, all week? This documentary that went out tonight on BBC Two, Asking for It, authored by Emily ATACK. Fantastic actress, comedian, presenter, and damn fine woman too. I've always heard lovely things about Emily from behind the scenes. I know people that have worked with her and say she's a damn fine woman. And then watching this today, I think Mark and we haven't spoken yet about it, though I know him well enough to know that we both just wanted to just scoop her up, didn't we?
I mean, she was
God.
It was like she was a photo fit of not only all my daughters, but of
All
every woman.
our daughters. All our daughters. You know, it takes a village.
But isn't that the most staggering aspect of all of this? Is that every single man that sends every single message, by dint of them being in the world, is related to a woman, i.e. they have a mother, they have a grandmother, etc. Might not have sisters. How hard is it for them to replace the faces of the people they abuse, and let's not beat around the bush here, it's abuse, with the faces of those people they love,
digital rape,
and ask themselves
horrific,
how would they feel, or if they knew the distress that someone was causing to their mother, their grandmother, their aunt, their sister, their daughter. I mean, just one of the things that I hear, not just from our girls, but from lots of other young women, is so many, not all, but so many of the men who do this are men of my age with families.
And this is what our girls say as well, that their harassment comes, and it was interesting because everything that was being said, no matter who Emily was talking to, or indeed Emily herself, we hear this on a daily basis. This is the experience of so many women. And as you know, we have a lot of young people in and out of this house. We have our daughters and all their friends, and we have a very open dialogue with everybody. And these stories are what we hear over and we weren't shocked by anything that we heard.
No.
We were shocked and horrified of the amount that Emily has to put up with. Of course, massively highlighted because she's a celebrity. But there are plenty of people that are being violated every day. And, as our daughter tells us, it's always middle-aged men. It's always middle-aged and above. Men of our own age don't do it.
But
what is going on?
There's lots to talk about, and I've made a list of stuff. There are two categories. There are the men that do this, and I have to say this because it just courses through my veins. There are then the women who fan the flames of this kind of attitude by victim shaming, homing in.
Why are you showing your cleavage?
Homing in on people.
Why'd you go on Instagram in your bikini?
Exactly.
Why'd you bend over back? Why are you arching? No, don't ask women why.
Ask men to
Why?
stop.
Ask men why.
Yeah, it's just
Ask
ridiculous.
that. And there was so much that was so good in this because I really did like, some of the people that she spoke to and the questions that came up for us to interrogate.
And I thought what was really moving about the whole thing was her moments of self-doubt. And, I know lots of people who themselves have had moments of self-doubt where you doubt whether what you do in your life freely with yourself and your body, in whatever way you want to do it, because you're in control of it and it's you. The self-doubt that she experienced from doing that, i.e. the difficulty of thinking it's them, but how much have I created the problem?
She was so raw. She was so raw. The way that she shared was it was very, very painful for Mark and I. And I don't know about you guys, but we wept a number of times through this because oh my God, my need to just put my arms around her and just keep saying, oh, sweetheart, just say everything. Just get it all out of you. And then let's just pick back over and over and over that not one fucking thing you did was wrong. And I actually went to pieces when later on in the show, she was talking to a group of men and it was a really interesting conversation. And then she said, what do I need to do to stop this? And this one man he just said, nothing. You don't need to do anything. And I said to Mark, turned to Mark, I was watching the programme, I said, this has got me like this because we don't hear that.
You don't hear it from men.
I know, I'm a loose woman. We talk all the time on here. I'm always for women's rights and improving women's lives. And I don't hear men say that much. And I don't hear women saying that much. Really, just like that. He said, you must do nothing. It's what must men do.
Well, and to that extent, without talking about too much personally, for example, I think it's right for me as a father to support my children's self-expression in whatever way, because what I'm saying to them is, you have the right to do whatever you so please. When other people then come in saying, but you're going to encourage this, but you're going for the wrong target. You're going for the wrong target. You need to target the men. You don't target the person doing whatever they're doing, because nothing they're doing is wrong. Everything they're doing is absolutely fine. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I say it all the time within our family, that women need to do absolutely nothing. But there are times in that documentary where I just felt like, Jesus Christ, this is insurmountable.
It was so content rich, the whole thing, because we had so many situations that were cringing, because the bit when she goes in for her rehearsals and the producers are like laughing. What's that comedian's name?
Yeah, the guy from Love Island.
And he's like obviously a very awkward with himself person and awkward with his own being. And so he was just laughing. Emily was sharing these messages. He kept laughing.
Sean Walsh.
And there was a guy over the other side who wasn't laughing and then decided to laugh as well. They didn't know what the fuck to do with it.
But at first it felt very uncomfortable there. And you said that. But what was interesting about that scene, and I'm pleased, the reason I'm pleased they kept it, was you saw them go over an arc of, oh, right, hang on a minute. Because laughter is a way of fanning it away and not having to deal with it.
But do you know why it was so important, Mark? Because when we talk about men need to be involved in this conversation, okay? Men need to be involved in this conversation. Small boys need to be involved in this conversation. We have to change the education. Now, they were educated in that situation. Those are all bright, intelligent men that work in very open and in an industry where people talk, and they didn't know what the fuck to do with that information. And you know what? The way she persisted reading those comments out, I was like, I wanted to stop.
Shivy says it only started to change when she mentioned rape. Really?
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted her to stop because it was so awkward. But actually, that's where we all go wrong. We stop when it gets awkward. And she pushed through. She looked so on her own all the way through this. I was just like, she felt like a child in a lot of ways. Don't you feel like she was so on her own with stuff? And she pushed through because she's one tough bird as well. And then they had to face the fact that it was fucking horrendous what she was going through. And in a way, it was a perfect portrait of what we have to do.
Well, I was about to say, my reaction to it was deeply uncomfortable. And I was thinking, this isn't good. We're seeing men who, I was using the phrase in my head, men who should know better. I mean, what does that mean? Men who shouldn't be laughing. And then on reflection on what you've just said is really true. What they managed to get in that scene was probably the most authentic portrait of a moment where a woman amongst her peer group and sort of professionals and friends, people who loved her, witnessing the way even in that sort of company, there's a desire to push this away, and it will be
somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
The woman's got to. She'll go home. She'll get loads of messages. No, and she was so wonderful. Yeah. She said, "I can sit here and laugh now, but when I go home, I'm triple locking my door. I'm looking out of the window because I've been told I'm going to be raped." She goes, "Oh," and one of them said, "Oh, you're going to be raped." She goes, "It's all as bad." And then he was so uncomfortable, but she pushed through with that discomfort.
Yeah, I deeply hope and I deeply presume that all of the shots at home, they will have used a fake home, and all of the names, even of what was it, Desperate Dave or Dave, whatever. They'll all be changed. They'll all have been changed.
To protect her.
Just read a few of your comments. Me too. We have a cultural problem where calling things out in public or in meetings is not accepted. That needs to change. We should be able to confront issues openly.
Do you know me too? Whenever I'm always quite passionate on loose women, when these sorts of topics come up, I'm often the loudest and the most passionate about it. And sometimes I find I would like more from women just generally. I'm not talking necessarily about these women. But you know what? The amount of abuse I get from other women.
But that's my point.
That's the bit that... attacked. I'm always attacked for it. Why you always be... I've got sons. It's like, how the fuck are we going to move on if we can't... Whenever women want to stand up, there's a bloody backlash.
No.
We're still getting a backlash for Me Too.
I don't understand why there is such a huge contingent of women who are willing to attack women about any strong stance which supports a sort of feminist approach or a self-affirming approach to life. I just find it horrible. The fact that she sent that reply back to that guy, I was absolutely sort of horrified, petrified, and just worried for her. I was just thinking, what the hell is this going to encourage? How is this whole film potentially gonna fan the flames of all of this? And yet therein lies the reason to make a documentary like this. She is incredibly brave, but she shouldn't have to be brave. I mean, that's the thing. She shouldn't have to be brave doing this.
And you know what? She was so fucking honest. That's why she's such a good actress and so funny, because, you know, at points I was like, oh my God. I loved when she was talking about, before you start judging somebody that might be getting pissed too often and, you know, whatever. I've always said this. I will not accept in my presence somebody calling somebody a slag or a slut or any of these things. My first port of call is, I wonder what's the matter with them.
What's happened?
And anybody that does, but I will sit in a room and say, don't say that about that person. I've got no problem with that. And that's what we need for men to say as well. It is awkward, it is embarrassing, but how are we going to change anything if we don't do that? And when she spoke to those two women who were working on online sexual violence, and, you know, Emily said right at the beginning of the documentary that she was looking to help criminalise dick pic sending and all of this. And those two women were really interesting, weren't they? They said, but if we just obsess with bringing in more laws and sending more men to prison, how are we going to get under the plaster, you know, have a look at the boil and get all the pus out, unless we are educating? Of course, everyone goes, oh, God, but that's too difficult. We can't do that. How are we going to do that? Well, we don't have belief that we can change.
Another couple of things that really struck me in this as well was the school kids talking about feeling most unsafe in school uniforms. I thought that was just it was like a shot in my... It was like a bolt gun had been held to my head, and I was thinking, oh my Christ, thank God when I went to school, all of us were not wearing school uniforms.
But Mark, I had this all the time.
What creeps into that is, why shouldn't girls be put in school uniform? You know, again, it's that thing of, why should the girls and the women and the institutions change their behaviour?
I never went to school once without getting sexually harassed on the bus, on the street, because of my uniform, and I had a long skirt, you know, and I said all of that stuff, because I had big boobs. So if you've got big boobs, that means you are asking for sexual attention. Yeah. That's what it was. And I've spent my whole life, because what people don't understand is sometimes what happens is that you actually play out something that's been put to you. Do you know? It's the weirdest fuck up. And the only thing that I was a bit frustrated with this program is I wanted more from that therapist explaining what that was. Yeah. Didn't you?
Yeah, totally.
Because you can sort of act out the very thing that you've been sort of labelled with from a young age.
One of the scenes that, I mean, I think it was good that they put it in, but one of the scenes that we've had first-hand experience from a different set of scenarios, it wasn't actually online, but where the police aren't always entirely that helpful.
Jesus.
It's not entirely that easy.
They were useless.
And I thought, I don't know, you know, I suppose in a sense you're wanting to send the message that there is something you can do about it, but really the fact that there's not a lot you can do about it, and the fact that it won't be taken seriously, they did cover that when they say that there's only a 1.3% conviction rate for rape. Think about that, 1.3%. That's of the number of reported rapes, which is less than the number of rapes.
No, and then the amount that actually get as far as court.
That's my point. Yeah, that's my point.
No, because there'll be a whole number that aren't reported.
No, that's what I'm saying. There are those that aren't reported, those that are reported, and then those that are, you know, that go through and are convicted. And the really important line that was trailed at the front and reiterated in the body of the film was, rape is not an entry-level offence.
Yeah.
There is evidence way, way before this. And the simple example of Everard's killer flashing, it's a straight, direct parallel, sending your dick pics and flashing. So I thought it was a really good message when the police officer did say, report everything, because at some point it will go onto a database of some form somewhere. And I think be quite insistent on reporting it. Of course it didn't. And we had physical evidence.
Disgusting.
Physical evidence.
The way
3
that they
police
behave.
officers fanned it away.
No, it was 2. Absolutely disgusting. The one that I called said,
it was
and told him what happened. He
was
goes, this is so disgusting. This is outrageous. That was the policeman that rang. And then when we spoke to them, we can't go into the detail of it, but one day we will. And it is so shocking the way that they spoke to us. I still don't quite believe any of it.
Rachel Kelleher, what she posts is not an invitation for vile messages and harassment. Anything anyone posts. Anything other than if you send a dick pic to someone. If you post something of yourself and it's not hurting someone else and it's not hate speak or anything else, you are allowed to do it. It doesn't justify anything. And I was pleased when she said, when people say, just don't go on social media, a very trite and easy thing that family members have once said.
Because when they're saying that, they're saying it's your fault for being on it.
But the other thing is that it's like saying to youngsters, don't cross a road. In this day and age, things evolve. Things move on. We're not in the same bloody, situation that we were years ago. It was just...
I identified with so much around her feelings of shame and where have I asked for it and whatever. It was challenging me all the way through to just keep thinking how many times I think, even as a pretty clued up woman, I still have to challenge all the time. And it's difficult with your own children, isn't it? Or your friends' children that might talk to you, or your cousins, your younger cousins, any of the young women that you talk to be so mindful of the way that you talk to them. So say, for instance, there's a young person and they're going out in something that's very revealing, because they're going to a party. They want to look great and they've got the body and, the guy's going to be there. There's nothing wrong with that. But to help manage them, to manage their life so that they're safe here, free there, safe there, is a minefield, because every time you suggest anything, you have to be aware that can be transferred to them as, oh, I'm doing something wrong here. I could be asking for trouble.
If there are any more men here, tell me what you thought of the show. There is not enough, says Lee Durant, being done. We can't be scared to call other men out. There has to be some kind of campaign now to start calling men out.
Well, you know what? Sadiq Khan is really trying with some really good little videos and stuff, isn't he, of making about around toxic masculinity. And in fact, I loved the guy with the beard who was talking in the male group. He said, and we were talking about this the other day, there's always this assumption that every man has to be gagging for it all the time, and there's something wrong with them if they're not. And maybe a lot of these people that send these messages are people actually that aren't gagging for it. Maybe it's the complete opposite. And actually by sending these messages, they can play into the toxic masculinity.
I loved his line where he said, not every man wakes up in the morning and thinks it's right to send something like this or send something like this.
And I think it's such a positive
really
message
important to understand
that there's so many millions and millions and millions and millions of good men. And there are so many that are doing these terrible things, and they are waking up, as he says, in the morning and making the fucking choice to do that. And it's got to become...
But I thought it was good the way they started to give us also a sort
an embarrassment
an eye sort of hole into why the pressures, that guy who shared about how he bought condoms and went to college and how he felt insufficient and inadequate. It didn't result in it. I mean, Maddie always says this, doesn't she? Just because someone's had a traumatic thing, he didn't go and do this. She didn't go and do this, so why are they going to do this? It doesn't equate that because you've had a difficult time or because you haven't been able to have sex for 3 years that you're going to turn into some predatory nut. It's...
I think on the parenting thing...
Yeah, I thought the parenting was really interesting.
I think just from a parent's point of view, I have had to push through the embarrassment of talking to our daughters about sex and about sexual... I've pushed through the embarrassment of talking about pornography and explaining that pornography is a movie, it's not real life. And I've pushed through the embarrassment of saying, sex is something that's lovely. if you consent, and something that is beautiful if you consent, and something that can be quite ordinary sometimes if you consent. And pornography is not the real world, and we have to find a way to push through that. So we just say it really nicely and calmly, and so that if your child, whatever age, Emily is still somebody's child, whatever age, they know that they can come and talk to you, and you're not going to go completely fucking nuts.
Crazy.
You've got to be calm. You've got to be okay on whatever level it is talking about sex. Because what frightens me so much is that any child of mine will hold that in of themselves, be in their echo chamber, have scurrilous people listening to them and helping them or advising them. No, we've got to push through our own embarrassment. And then we got to be like a shoulder to cry on at all times.
A couple of things I want to read out. Jennifer Whalen, but we don't need to talk about the good men. We don't always need to put these caveats on this kind of conversation. Look, Jennifer, I entirely agree. And I think if you look at 95% of our... This is one of the problems with talking about anything. When you talk about something, there's always something you're not talking about at the point that you're talking about it. And there's always, for some reason, an ability to focus on what you're not talking at that point. I'm not suggesting that's what you're doing, Jennifer. But
Jennifer, totally
understand what you're saying. But it's hard, isn't it? I think
Jennifer, I have to do this all the time. Watching on Loose Women.
I have to
go da-da-da-da, and then I have to go obviously da-da-da-da, because otherwise I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that because I just assume people know that the majority of men are good, but the minority, which is still huge, who perpetuate in whatever way.
They are the loudest.
Fucking loud.
Most vocal.
I mean, this poor woman getting up to 100 messages a day. I mean, imagine that. Imagine how loud that is in her life.
Just want to read a couple of comments that are really interesting coming in. Claire H, my husband is here. He says it's fucking crazy. He didn't realise it happened to this extent. Shocked. I just want to read Reese Roberts'
Would your husband call somebody out? I want to hear as well from the men here who say, do you know, I would. If somebody showed me, oh, look, I've been showing this. Look, that's my dick. I'm sending it to Emily ATACK. What would you say?
I'd say, don't be such a filthy fucking bastard.
Aren't you ashamed of yourself?
Aren't you ashamed of yourself? And what about Emily ATACK? What has she done to make you do that?
Because it's violence.
Why are you doing that? How can you justify that behaviour?
Many
I just
people
go nuts.
will say, oh, if I ever saw anyone hitting a woman, I'd be in there. It's the same, okay? But even possibly worse when it's repeated over and over and over and over.
No,
again.
Jennifer, we
didn't think you did.
We understood.
I knew it's because you looked so
No, you raised a really important point. And it's a point that other people seize upon the idea that, we need to dismiss what you're saying because you're not focused on that. But you're absolutely right.
No, you brought up a point that we always wanted to make, so it's brilliant.
We agree with you.
Yeah.
Reese Roberts, hey Mark, I found Emily's doc enlightening and necessary, linking to the point you made earlier, Reese. From young, the respect and decency towards women has always been paramount for my life. There you go. I mean,
and it is come across as a damn fine man as well.
It's about nurture. It's about nurture. Final thing I just want to talk about, I think we should talk about, was her incredibly difficult conversations with her mum and the way in which her mum responded to things.
Her mum found it very difficult.
And her mum found it incredibly difficult. And I think what you saw in that relationship was although her mum wasn't a different generation, she was of a different mindset where it's really hard to access the complications of what's going on here. Because I thought it was so moving when Emily said, but I feel that when you get like this, it makes me feel guilty. It makes me feel like I've done something wrong. Whereas her mum, of course, all of her best interests of her child.
Because, of course, her mum's walking away because she can't bear it.
Yeah.
But what's Emily hearing? You can't bear me.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing about being a parent, isn't it? You don't realise that sometimes you're talking in a foreign language to your child, even with your actions and your emotions. So it fucking ain't easy being a parent. That's what I would say.
And what I would say is, and this is what I love about Emily ATACK, is that a lot of her posts, a lot of her footage, a lot of her profile is about looking attractive, looking sexy, all those kind of things. If you know someone who posts images of themselves looking sexy, looking attractive, looking all these things, champion them.
Yeah.
Champion them. Don't say, have you thought,
what are you going to do?
Why are you doing
what
that?
Sort of
what
people
sort of people
are you going to have
encourage?
following you? Just don't. Just follow someone else.
Yeah, don't look at it.
You know what I mean? If you find it offensive, then just follow someone else. You know, we always support our daughters in whatever choices they want to make because we want them to help change the world. We don't want them to change for the fucking stinking world.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Nadia Sawalha. There you go, guys.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm sure we'll be talking about it a bit tomorrow morning on Coffee Moaning, but have a good evening, guys, and we're going to go and see Love Island now.